The laboratory lights flickered faintly as Ethan adjusted the strange alien device on the metal table. He wasn't supposed to touch it, not without permission, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. The chamber was quiet, except for the soft hum of the alien machine, glowing with colors his eyes could barely describe. He leaned closer, his breath fogging the glass surface, and whispered, "Just a small test. No one will know." Ethan was a human mechanic brought onto the alien research station to repair broken tools, but sometimes he got curious about their advanced technology. The aliens trusted him because he was hardworking and respectful, but they never expected him to experiment with something so dangerous. Still, tonight, with the station almost empty, temptation had pulled him too far. He tapped a sequence on the control pad, imitating what he had seen the alien scientists do before. A blue light pulsed through the device and the air around him vibrated. At that moment, the door hissed open. Lyra, an alien girl from the research team, walked in carrying a tray of samples. Her tall frame and shimmering skin always made Ethan nervous, though she was gentle and kind. Tonight, though, her calm face quickly turned into shock. "Ethan, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before he could answer, the machine released a sudden wave of energy. The beam shot across the room, hitting Lyra directly. She gasped, dropping her tray, and her hands went to her chest as a glowing light swirled around her. Ethan panicked, pressing buttons wildly to shut the device down. Finally, the machine went dark with a loud crackle, leaving the room in silence. But when Ethan looked back at Lyra, his jaw nearly dropped. Something about her had changed. Her chest area had grown noticeably larger, swollen in a way that was both shocking and embarrassing. Her face turned bright crimson, her eyes wide, her lips pressed together as if she didn't know whether to scream or hide. She wrapped her arms around herself quickly, trembling. What did you do to me?" she stammered, her cheeks glowing brighter with every passing second. Ethan's heart raced. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. I was just testing. You enlarged them," she cried, her voice breaking between outrage and humiliation. She turned her head away, her glowing skin betraying every bit of her embarrassment. "Do you realize what this means? Do you know how shameful this is in my culture?" Ethan froze. He had no idea what she meant, but he knew he was in serious trouble. The machine's faint hum still echoed in his ears as guilt washed over him. He had only wanted to peek, to learn, to satisfy his curiosity. But now, standing in front of Lyra, he realized he had done something far worse than breaking rules. He had crossed a line that touched her dignity. Lyra took a shaky breath, still covering herself, her tail curling tightly behind her. She looked at Ethan, her eyes sharp but also strangely vulnerable. You have no idea what you've done," she whispered, her blush deepening. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to startle her. "I swear I'll fix it. I'll undo it. Just tell me how—" Her voice cut him off. "You can't, not easily. The effect may last days." She turned away, hiding her face with her hands. "I cannot let the others see me like this. They will never stop mocking me. And worse, they will think you and I—" She stopped, biting her lip, refusing to say more. Ethan's stomach tightened. This wasn't just an accident. It was a disaster that could ruin her reputation and his place on the station. And yet in her flustered expression, in the way her eyes flicked nervously toward him, he saw something else, something fragile and human, even though she wasn't human at all. The silence between them stretched, heavy and charged. Then softly Lyra whispered, "Please, don't tell anyone. Promise me." Ethan swallowed hard. "I promise." At that moment, the station alarm beeped faintly in the background, signaling that someone else was coming down the corridor. Both of them froze, their eyes locking in panic. If anyone walked in now, the truth would be revealed. Ethan moved quickly, shutting down the console completely and pulling Lyra toward the shadows of the room. Her face was still burning red, her chest pressed awkwardly against her arms as she tried to hide. Their breaths came fast, the weight of the accident pulling them together in an uncomfortable, undeniable bond. The footsteps outside grew louder. Lyra whispered urgently, "If they find out, my life here is over. Yours too." Ethan clenched his fists, his heart hammering. He didn't know what was worse, the danger of being caught or the strange, awkward closeness he suddenly felt with her. Either way, one thing was clear. Their lives had just changed forever. The footsteps outside the lab grew louder, echoing in the corridor. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. If the other researchers walked in and saw Lyra like this, There would be no way to explain what had happened. He quickly pulled her toward the far corner, where the glow from the machine couldn't reach. Lyra's body stiffened under his grip, but she didn't resist. Her face was still bright red, and she held her arms across her chest tightly, her embarrassment plain to see. Ethan whispered, "Stay quiet." The door slid open with a hiss. A tall alien male entered carrying a datapad. His glowing eyes scanned the room, suspicious but calm. He was one of the senior researchers, Sarek, known for his sharp memory and sharp tongue. Ethan froze, hoping the shadows would hide them. Sarek looked around, frowned, and muttered something in his language. He tapped the datapad, glanced at the machine, then left as suddenly as he had come. The door sealed shut. Silence fell again, but the silence felt heavier now. Lyra exhaled shakily, her body trembling. She pulled herself free from Ethan's hold and turned to face him. "That was too close," she whispered, her voice tight. "If Sarek had seen me like this, it would have spread through the entire station by morning." Ethan rubbed his forehead, guilt tightening his chest. "I'm sorry, Lyra, I didn't mean for this to happen. You just couldn't resist, could you?" she snapped, though her voice cracked with emotion. Humans and their curiosity, always pressing buttons they don't understand. She turned away, her hands clutched tightly against herself. Ethan wanted to defend himself, to explain that he hadn't been careless, that he only wanted to learn, but he knew she was right. He had been reckless. His silence stretched between them until finally she sighed. "You promised not to tell anyone," she said softly. "If you keep that promise, maybe I can endure this until the effect wears off." Ethan nodded quickly. "I'll keep it. No one will know. I'll protect you." Her eyes flicked back toward him, uncertain, almost searching. Then she whispered, "You don't understand what this means among my people. When a girl changes like this, it is seen as a sign that she has been chosen." Her voice lowered, heavy with shame. "If the others think you are the one who caused it, they will assume we are bonded. Do you understand? They will think you and I—" Her words trailed off, but Ethan's ears burned. Bonded? Chosen? The weight of her culture's meaning pressed down on him. What was only an accident for him could destroy her honor, her respect, and maybe even her future. "I won't let them think that," Ethan said firmly. "I'll take the blame if I have to." Her eyes widened. "You can't. They would exile you from the station." "Maybe worse," he clenched his fists. "Then we'll hide it together." For the first time since the accident, she looked at him with something other than anger. Her gaze softened, though her blush only deepened. She swallowed hard and whispered, You really would do that?" Ethan nodded without hesitation. The silence between them shifted. It was no longer the silence of panic, but of something unspoken, fragile and strange. Lyra looked away quickly, her shimmering skin glowing faintly. "Then we must be careful. If anyone notices, we'll both suffer." Suddenly, the alarm on the wall chimed again. This time it wasn't just footsteps. A voice echoed over the comms. "All research staff report to the observation deck. Emergency briefing." Lyra straightened, her hands still guarding her chest. Her expression hardened, though her cheeks still glowed pink. "We have to go. If we don't show up, they'll suspect something." Ethan's stomach twisted. "But I'd like this?" She glared at him. "Do you have a better idea?" He didn't. He could only follow her as they stepped into the corridor, trying to act normal. Every step made Lyra stiffen, her arms clutched tightly to herself, her face refusing to meet his. He wished he could undo everything, but it was too late. When they entered the observation deck, dozens of aliens turned their heads. For a terrifying second, Ethan thought everyone would notice Lyra's change immediately, but the crowd's focus was on the giant screen at the front. A strange ship was approaching the station, unfamiliar, dark, and silent. The commander's voice filled the room. "Unidentified craft detected. Prepare for possible conflict." Ethan's heart skipped. This was worse than he expected. Not only did they have to hide Lyra's embarrassing condition, but now a mysterious threat loomed over the entire station. And somehow, deep in his gut, he knew the two problems were about to collide in ways he could never imagine. The two problems were about to collide in ways he could never imagine. He glanced sideways at Lyra. Her face was still flushed, her eyes focused on the screen. She looked nervous, embarrassed, and yet strangely determined. Ethan realized then that their secret accident was only the beginning of something much larger, something that might change both of their lives forever. The observation deck buzzed with tension. Scientists, officers, and engineers whispered nervously, as the unidentified ship on the screen grew larger. Its black surface reflected no light, making it look like a shadow gliding through space. No signals, no markings, only silence. Ethan stood stiffly at the edge of the crowd, trying to look like he belonged, though his heart was pounding. Beside him, Lyra folded her arms across her chest, her posture tense. She refused to meet his eyes, but he could see the faint flush still glowing across her cheeks. The commander's voice boomed again. All teams prepare for possible boarding. No communication has been established. This could be hostile. The room erupted into hurried movement. Some ran to their stations, others scrambled to secure equipment. Ethan swallowed hard. He wasn't a soldier, he was a mechanic. If the ship attacked, he'd be nothing but a bystander. But worse than that, Lyra's secret could be exposed in the chaos. He leaned toward her and whispered, "Do you think they'll notice?" Her eyes flashed with panic, and for a moment she looked like she might hit him. "Not now, Ethan," she hissed under her breath. "Focus on survival." The word stung, but he bit his tongue. She was right. Moments later, the lights dimmed, replaced by red emergency panels glowing along the walls. The commander gave the order, "Shields up. All civilians prepare for lockdown." Ethan's stomach churned. He turned to Lyra. "If they attack, what will you do?" Her jaw tightened. "I'll fight." Her voice was firm, though her arms still clung protectively across her chest. "I may be embarrassed, but I am still a scientist of this station. I won't hide." Ethan felt a surge of admiration. Even in her most humiliating moment, she had courage. But before he could reply, the deck shuddered violently. The alien ship had latched onto the station. A chilling silence followed. Then came the sound, metal creaking, doors unlocking. Something was forcing its way inside. The commander shouted, "Defense squads to the airlocks." Ethan grabbed Lyra's wrist without thinking. "We need to get out of here." But she shook her head, her eyes blazing. "No, if they are hostile, they'll be after our technology. The device you used earlier, it could be what they want. We can't let them take it." Ethan's blood ran cold. She was right. That strange machine was too powerful to fall into enemy hands. And if anyone saw it, they might also learn what Ethan had done to her. Both their futures balanced on that secret. Before he could answer, the airlock doors across the deck burst open. Dark figures stepped inside, tall armored beings with glowing red visors. They moved in silence, weapons raised, scanning the crowd like predators. Gasps filled the room. Soldiers raised their blasters, but the intruders didn't fire. Instead, one of them pointed straight toward the laboratory corridor. Lyra's breath caught. "They're after it," she whispered. Ethan's mind raced. If the attackers reached the machine, they'd not only steal dangerous technology, but also leave clues about what had happened to Lyra. He couldn't allow that. He tugged her arm. "Then we have to beat them there first." Her eyes widened. "That's suicide." "Maybe," he said, his voice shaking. "But it's the only chance we've got." For a moment, she just stared at him, her face still pink. Her chest still awkwardly hidden, but her eyes filled with something stronger. "Trust." She gave a sharp nod. "Then let's move." Together, they slipped out of the crowd, keeping low as chaos erupted in the observation deck. Soldiers clashed with the intruders, blaster fire lighting up the room. Ethan and Lyra darted into the side corridor, their footsteps echoing in the empty hall. As they ran, Ethan couldn't stop glancing at her. Even in the middle of danger, she carried herself with determination, her shimmering skin catching the faint emergency lights. He hated himself for thinking about her blush, about her embarrassment when everything was falling apart. But maybe, he thought, this was the strange way humans and aliens bonded, not through logic but through accidents, mistakes, and survival. They reached the laboratory doors. Ethan slammed the control panel and the doors slid open. The machine sat in the center, still faintly glowing from before. Lyra froze, her hands tightening into fists. "If they get this, it's over," Ethan nodded. His chest heaved as he tried to think. "Then we destroy it." Her head whipped toward him. "Destroy? Do you know what you're saying?" "That device is irreplaceable. Years of research don't matter if we're dead," Ethan snapped. "Or worse, if they use it against us." The sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall. The intruders were close. Lyra hesitated, torn between her duty as a scientist and the growing fear inside her. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Lyra, you said this accident tied us together. If that's true, then trust me now, please." Her eyes locked with his. For a heartbeat, the chaos outside vanished. She gave the faintest nod. Together, they turned toward the machine as the footsteps thundered nearer. The decision was made. The lab doors sealed behind them. But the sound of heavy boots was already closing in. The walls shook as blaster fire cracked through the corridor outside. Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. The device in the center of the room pulsed faintly, like a heart waiting to beat again. Lyra rushed toward the console, her hands flying across the glowing symbols. If I can overload it, I can make it useless. Ethan hurried to her side. How long will it take? Her jaw tightened. Minutes. We don't have minutes, he snapped. The door shuddered violently as the intruders tried to force it open. The reinforced steel bent slightly, sparks flying from the edges. Ethan grabbed a wrench from the tool bench and clenched it in his hands. It was pathetic compared to their weapons, but it was all he had. Lyra glanced at him, her flushed cheeks glowing in the lab's light. You can't fight them with that. He forced a grin, though fear gnawed at him. Then I'll just have to be creative. The door burst open with a deafening crash. 3 armored figures stormed inside, their glowing red visors scanning the room instantly. One pointed at the device. The others raised their weapons. Ethan didn't think, he acted. He charged forward, swinging the wrench with every ounce of strength. The first blow cracked against the intruder's helmet, sending the figure stumbling. But the second intruder slammed him to the ground, the wrench clattering away. A boot pressed down on Ethan's chest, pinning him. The alien's weapon hummed, charging to fire. Ethan! Lyra cried. She grabbed a loose power cable from the console and hurled it toward the attacker. Electricity sparked as it struck the intruder's armor, making him stagger. Ethan used the chance to roll free, gasping for breath. The third intruder marched toward the device, reaching out with a clawed hand. Lyra darted in front of it, her arms spread wide. No! The intruder froze, his visor tilting slightly. For a strange, tense moment, none of them moved. Then the alien's head tilted lower, straight at her chest. His glowing eyes flickered. Lyra's face turned crimson. She clutched herself instinctively, mortified. Ethan saw it too, and rage flared inside him. These invaders weren't just after the machine, they were mocking her. Don't you dare look at her like that, Ethan roared. He lunged forward, slamming into the intruder with his shoulder. The two crashed into the console, sparks exploding around them. The machine flared to life, the glow spreading across its surface. Symbols lit up, humming with power. Lyra's eyes widened. No! If it activates again... The intruder shoved Ethan aside and slammed a gauntleted fist onto the controls. The machine screamed with energy, the light pouring out in blinding waves. Lyra staggered back, shielding her face. Ethan scrambled to his feet, blinking through the light. What's happening? Her voice shook with both fear and shame. The resonance, it's unstable. It will expand whatever it touches. Ethan's stomach dropped. He looked at her, then at himself, then at the intruders. This could end in disaster. The intruder nearest the device reached again, but Ethan threw himself at the console. He yanked free another power cable and jammed it into the machine. Sparks flew and the entire lab shook. The machine's hum turned into a scream. Then in a single burst it exploded with light. The shockwave knocked everyone off their feet. The intruders were thrown back against the wall, their armor sparking and failing. Ethan hit the ground hard, the air knocked out of him. When he blinked open his eyes, the room was filled with a strange glow. The device was dark now, dead, but Lyra stood in the center, trembling. Her face burned red, her chest awkwardly larger than before, her eyes wide with disbelief. Ethan scrambled to his knees. Lyra, are you okay? She covered herself quickly, her tail curling tight. I'm fine, she stammered, though her blush betrayed her humiliation. The intruders groaned, their suits sparking. One dragged himself to his feet, glaring through his broken visor. He raised his weapon weakly, aiming at Ethan. Ethan grabbed the fallen wrench, his arms shaking. Stay down! He shouted, though he knew he couldn't win another fight. Down! He shouted, though he knew he couldn't win another fight. Before the intruder could fire, the door burst open again. Station soldiers stormed in, weapons blazing. Within seconds, the intruders were subdued, dragged away in restraints. The commander stepped into the lab, his sharp eyes scanning the wreckage. His gaze landed on Ethan and Lyra, standing awkwardly close, the machine smoldering behind them. What happened here? The commander demanded. Ethan's mouth went dry. If he told the truth, Lyra's secret would be exposed. If he lied, he risked everything. He glanced at her. She looked terrified, her face still glowing red, her arms clutched protectively. but in her eyes he saw trust. Ethan drew a deep breath. The intruders tried to use the machine. I destroyed it. The commander's eyes narrowed. He looked at Ethan for a long moment, then nodded curtly. Good, report to me later. For now, get medical attention. With that, the soldiers dragged the intruders away. The commander left, leaving Ethan and Lyra alone in the ruined lab. Ethan turned to her, his chest still heaving. I had to lie. Are you angry? Lyra's face softened, though her blush remained. She whispered, No, I'm grateful. You protected me. You saved me. For a moment, their eyes locked and something unspoken passed between them. Then she looked away, hugging herself tighter. But Ethan, the device may be gone, but the effect on me is not. What if it never wears off? Ethan swallowed hard. Then we'll face it together. Her cheeks glowed brighter and she turned from him quickly. But Ethan saw the faintest smile tug at her lips. The lab smelled of burnt metal and ozone. Smoke drifted lazily from the shattered machine, curling in the stale air. Ethan leaned against the wall, his arms shaking from exhaustion. His chest still burned from where the intruder had pinned him. But worse than the bruises was the weight in his mind. What had happened to Lyra could never be revealed. She stood in the corner, arms folded tightly across her chest, her face still flushed. Her shimmering skin glowed faintly in the dim light, betraying her embarrassment. Every time she caught Ethan's eyes, she quickly turned away, but her trembling tail showed she wasn't as calm as she tried to appear. The door slid open again, and Sarek entered with 2 assistants. His sharp gaze swept the wreckage, then fixed on Ethan and Lyra. He frowned. So, the intruders nearly succeeded, and the machine is destroyed. His voice carried no warmth. Ethan's stomach tightened. Sarek's eyes narrowed further. Curious, isn't it? You, a human mechanic, happen to be here at the exact time, and Lyra, you seem unusually distressed. Lyra stiffened, her face flushing deeper. She stammered, I was only protecting the research. Ethan saved us both. Sarek's gaze lingered on her as if searching for a crack in her words. Ethan stepped forward quickly. She's telling the truth. The intruders forced their way in. I smashed the device so they couldn't use it. That's all. The silence stretched. Finally, Sarek muttered, Perhaps. He turned to his assistants. Take the remains of the machine to secure storage. And keep this incident quiet for now. As he left, Ethan exhaled shakily. He had felt Sarek's suspicion like a blade at his throat. When the door closed again, Lyra let out a breath she had been holding. Her hands dropped to her sides, though she still avoided his gaze. That was too close, she whispered. Ethan nodded grimly. He knows something's off. She hugged herself tightly. If Sarek discovers the truth, I'll be ruined. They'll think I allowed this. Change willingly, that I bonded myself to you. Her voice cracked at the last words, her blush deepening until her whole face glowed. Ethan's heart clenched. Then we can't let him find out. We'll protect the secret together. Her eyes flicked toward him, uncertain. Together? Yes, he said firmly. I won't abandon you. Not after what I caused. The room went quiet again, the tension between them heavy. Then slowly her shoulders loosened. She whispered, Thank you. They left the lab, walking side by side through the dim corridors. Soldiers rushed past them, securing the station after the intruder attack. Everyone looked tense, too focused on the external threat to notice Lyra's awkward posture or flushed cheeks. For now, their secret was safe. They reached a quiet observation window overlooking the stars. Ethan leaned on the rail, staring at the endless dark. Do you think they'll come back? He asked softly. Lyra joined him, though she kept her arms folded across her chest. Yes, whoever they were, they wanted the device. Now that it's destroyed, they'll want revenge. She paused, her voice quieter. And they may know it was us. Ethan clenched his fists. Then we'll be ready. She glanced at him, her blush softening into something almost gentle. You speak as if you're part of us now. He shrugged with a small smile. Maybe I am, or maybe I just care too much to walk away. Her eyes lingered on him for a moment, then darted away. The faintest smile touched her lips, though she quickly hid it. The quiet moment ended when the commander's voice boomed over the comms. All research staff report for questioning. Debriefing begins immediately. Ethan groaned. Perfect timing, Lyra's face paled. If Sarek questions us together, he'll notice something. He always notices. Ethan looked at her, determination hardening his voice. Then we stick to one story. We fought off the intruders. I destroyed the machine. Nothing else happened. Her blush deepened again. She nodded quickly. Nothing else happened. They walked together toward the briefing room. The corridor stretched endlessly, every step heavier than the last. Inside, the room buzzed with nervous energy. Dozens of researchers and soldiers gathered, whispering in low voices. Sarek sat near the front, his sharp eyes glinting. When Ethan and Lyra entered, his gaze locked onto them instantly. Ethan's stomach dropped. He could almost hear Sarek's thoughts. Something isn't right. The commander called the room to order. We will hear testimony from those who witnessed the attack. His eyes swept the crowd. Ethan, Lyra, stepped forward. Ethan's pulse hammered. Lyra's hand brushed against his, trembling before pulling away. This was it. One mistake, one slip, and their secret would unravel in front of everyone. Ethan drew a deep breath, ready to protect her at any cost. The briefing room was silent except for the hum of the station's engines. Ethan and Lyra stood at the front, dozens of eyes fixed on them. The commander leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. Sarek, however, leaned forward, his gaze sharp as a knife. "Tell us what happened," the commander ordered. Ethan's throat tightened. He glanced at Lyra, who stood stiffly beside him, her arms folded across her chest, her face flushed though she tried to hide it. Her eyes begged him not to fail. Ethan drew a breath. The intruders forced their way into the lab. They went for the machine. I stopped them the only way I could. I destroyed it. That's why it can't be used against us. The commander nodded slowly. And Lyra? Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. I was there when they entered. Ethan risked himself to protect me. Without him, I would not be standing here now. A murmur rippled through the room. Some looked surprised. A human mechanic saving a trained alien scientist. Others looked skeptical. Sarek's eyes narrowed. Interesting. He rose from his chair and stepped closer, circling them like a predator. And yet, you both look nervous. Too nervous. Why is that, I wonder? Ethan clenched his fists. Because we were nearly killed, Sarek. Maybe that's reason enough. Sarek ignored him, his eyes fixed on Lyra. You. Something about you is different. His head tilted, his nostrils flaring slightly. Yes, I can smell it. The machine touched you, didn't it? Lyra froze, her face burning crimson. Her arms tightened protectively across her chest. Ethan stepped forward, blocking Sarek's view. She wasn't touched. She's fine. Don't twist this, the commander raised a hand. Enough. We are not here for accusations. But Sarek's smile was thin and cruel. If she was altered by the machine, it is my duty to report it. For the sake of the station. Lyra's breath quickened. Ethan felt her trembling beside him. He had seconds to act before Sarek forced the truth out. He stepped forward boldly. If anyone was changed, it was me. I was the one closest to the machine when it overloaded. You think I'm nervous? Fine, I am. Because I don't know if it did something to me. The room went silent. Sarek's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. You would take the blame for her? Ethan met his gaze without flinching. I would. For a moment, Sarek looked stunned. Then a cruel smile tugged at his lips. How noble. And how foolish, he turned to the commander. This human meddled with our technology. He admits it himself. He is a danger to the station. The commander's eyes hardened. Is this true, Ethan? Did you tamper with the machine? Ethan's heart pounded. If he said yes, he could be exiled, or worse. If he said no, Sarek would tear into Lyra until she broke. He clenched his fists, ready to sacrifice himself. But before he could answer, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice rang out, strong despite her blush. No, Ethan is not a danger. If not for him, I would be dead. He fought when no one else could. He destroyed the machine to save us all. If there is blame, it belongs to me. I was responsible for guarding the lab. The room erupted in whispers. Sarek's eyes flashed with fury. Lies, you protect him because he... The commander slammed his hand on the table. Enough. I've heard what I need. He looked at both Ethan and Lyra. You will be watched closely. If either of you hides anything from this council, I will know. Ethan and Lyra both bowed their heads. Understood, they said together. The meeting adjourned, the crowd dispersing with nervous chatter. Sarek lingered, his eyes burning with suspicion before finally stalking out. When the room was empty, Ethan exhaled shakily. That was too close. Lyra's hands trembled as she pressed them against her chest. Her blush deepened, but her voice was steady. You would have sacrificed yourself for me. He looked at her, his chest tight. Of course I would. She swallowed hard, her eyes shimmering. For a moment she almost reached for his hand. But then alarms blared through the station, cutting the moment short. Warning. Hostile ship returning. All hands to stations. Ethan's stomach dropped. The intruders were back. Lyra's face paled, her blush now mixed with fear. They're not finished with us. They want the machine, and if they can't have it, they'll come for us. Ethan clenched his jaw. Then we fight, together. Her eyes locked on his. This time she didn't look away. The alarms wailed through the station, red lights flashing across the walls. Ethan and Lyra ran side by side down the corridor, the floor trembling beneath their feet. Overhead, the commander's voice echoed through the comms. Hostile ship re-engaged. All defense units to battle stations. Ethan's heart pounded. The station was already damaged from the first attack, and now the intruders were back, fiercer than before. But worse, they knew about the lab. If they didn't get the machine, they might come for its witnesses, Lyra and Ethan. They reached the armory. Soldiers rushed around, grabbing weapons and suiting up. Ethan, just a mechanic, had no armor, no training. But he grabbed a blaster from the rack anyway. His hands shook as he held it. Lyra's blush hadn't faded, but her eyes burned with determination. She strapped on a light chest plate, though it looked awkward against her altered form. She caught him staring and snapped, "Stop looking!" He flushed. "Sorry, I'm worried about you." Her eyes softened for half a second before she turned away. "Then stay alive. That's all I ask." The ship shuddered violently. Explosions rattled the hull. The commander's voice boomed again. "Enemy boarding parties detected. Sector C, protect the research wing." Lyra's face paled. "That's us." Ethan tightened his grip on the blaster. "Then we hold the line." They joined the squad rushing toward Sector C. The corridors roared with the sound of boots and alarms. When the airlock burst open, armored intruders poured through, weapons blazing. The soldiers fired back, plasma bolts lighting the halls with deadly flashes. Ethan ducked behind cover, firing wildly. His shots barely hit, but he kept the pressure on. Lyra crouched beside him, her face tight with fear but her hands steady. She grabbed a fallen soldier's rifle and returned fire, her aim precise. "Nice shot." Ethan shouted over the chaos. "Focus!" she snapped, but her cheeks glowed brighter. The intruders pushed forward, stronger, relentless. Step by step, they forced the soldiers back toward the lab. Ethan's chest tightened. If they reached the wreckage of the machine, they might salvage something dangerous, or worse, discover the truth about what it had done to Lyra. He leaned close to her. "We can't let them reach the lab. We have to cut them off," she nodded grimly. Together, they broke from cover, moving through side corridors to flank the enemy. Plasma fire scorched the walls as they ran. They burst out behind the intruders, catching them by surprise. Ethan fired until his blaster overheated, while Lyra hurled an energy grenade she'd grabbed from the armory. The explosion rocked the hall, scattering the attackers. For a moment, victory seemed close. But then the largest intruder stepped forward, a towering figure in black armor, visor glowing like fire. He raised a massive weapon, aiming straight at Lyra. Ethan didn't think. He threw himself in front of her. The blast hit his shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground. Pain seared through his body. His vision blurred, but he heard Lyra scream his name. "No!" She dropped beside him, tears brimming in her eyes. Her hands shook as she pressed them to his wound, her face crimson with fear and something deeper. "You can't die. Not because of me. Not now." Through the haze of pain, Ethan managed a weak smile. "I told you. We'd face it together." Her chest heaved, her blush brighter than ever. Something inside her seemed to snap. She rose, rage and shame and determination burning in her eyes. She grabbed his fallen blaster, aimed with deadly precision, and fired again and again. The towering intruder staggered, then collapsed in a shower of sparks. The other soldiers rallied, pushing the rest of the intruders back toward the airlock. Within minutes, the boarders retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The hostile ship disengaged, vanishing into the dark void of space. The battle was over. Lyra dropped the weapon and fell to her knees beside Ethan. Her hands trembled as she cupped his face. "Don't you ever do that again," she whispered, her voice breaking. He managed a weak laugh. "Can't make promises." Her blush deepened, but she didn't let go. For the first time, she met his eyes without turning away. "You risked everything for me. You kept my secret. You fought for me, and you nearly died for me." She swallowed hard. "Among my people. That means you are more than bonded. You are chosen." Ethan's chest tightened. He reached up, his hand brushing hers. Then I guess I'm honored. For a moment, the world around them fell away. The alarms, the soldiers, the chaos. It all faded, leaving only the two of them in that broken corridor. Lyra leaned closer, her blush still glowing, but her voice steady. From now on, we face everything together. Ethan smiled through the pain. Together. Pain. Together.